Hi, my name is Vanya, and this is my story. As many of you may know, I was born in Tomsk, Russia. When I was 10, I was adopted. But prior to that, there was some events that led me to where I am today as a follower of Christ. Growing up in Russia, I was in an orphanage when I was 6, and later on moved to orphanage when I was 8. So during that time, I was really searching for my identity, for a place to belong and feel accepted. And honestly, it was a combination of me pretending of who I was and trying to, in a way, sell myself to hopefully be in a family. And honestly, on the outside, it looked good, and some people bought it, but deep inside, I was insecure, I had a heart of stone, and I was searching. And the reason I was searching was because growing up, my biological mom passed away when I was 3 years old. My biological dad had a submarine accident while in the Russian Navy, and he began to abuse alcohol. So he was there for me, he loved me, but he could not be that parent who he wanted to be inside. So during that time, my aunt, his sister, would come and she would bring food when needed. She'd clean me up and try to give me the childhood that I needed between the ages 1 and 5 as I was growing up. And it came to a point where she actually tried to adopt me, but because of various complications with the government, they said that she could not adopt me. So when I was growing up during that time, there was a period where I would walk, the streets of Tomsk and in that neighborhood, and I would ask for food, for just time where I could spend at people's houses. And to me, it seemed totally natural because I was simply hanging out with the neighbors. But as I look back at it now, I was asking for food and pretty much begging. But I was just so thankful that my aunt was there for me and my extended family was there to take care of me. So when I was 6, I stayed with a host family in Spain for about a month, and this was a program where the host family could adopt after having a child stay with them for a month. And when I came back, obviously I was not selected to be adopted with them. So that was hard. I felt I didn't have a family where I was born in, and I didn't want to be accepted in Spain. So at the age of 8, I got selected again, and I stayed with a host family in Long Island, New York. And that was a great time. I felt really confident that I would be adopted there and be part of the Gallagher family. But unfortunately, various line of circumstances didn't let that work out. So at that time, those insecurities really built up to a point where I told myself that, hey, I gotta do something to sell myself, to show that I'm worthy of love, of affection, of acceptance. And I put on a show, and a lot of people liked me. But when I was 10, little did I know that my parents, Paul and Dawn Kepke, they're looking to adopt a girl who was 5 years old and a boy who was 7. Like I said, I was 10 at the time. So they find the girl, my sister Galina, and as they file the paperwork for the boy who was 7 years old, the principal and the social worker, they said, well, there's been some mistake, and this boy has already been selected to be adopted with another family. So my parents were a little bit discouraged. They thought, okay, well, we wanted to adopt 2 kids, but maybe this is a sign we should only adopt 1. But they prayed about it, didn't feel peace, and came back and to my orphanage, and they go back to the same room on the left side of the orphanage on the 3rd story. But rather, they got 20 DVDs from a group of kids on the right side of the orphanage on the 2nd room, in the room on the right side. And just that alone was a sign that God had a plan for me, that God wanted me to be in a place where I could use this very story to encourage people in their life. So one day I got called down to the principal's office, and my mom and dad now were their social worker principal. We had a little chat, but my mom tells me now, she said, Vanya, the moment you walked in, I knew that you were the one. So here I am now, almost 12 years later, and I got to tell you that there are moments where we feel that we don't have a purpose, that we are just walking through this life aimlessly trying to find those temporary pleasures. But let me tell you that all the way up until 12, actually 2 years after being adopted, I felt that that was the purpose of life, that I put on a show, that I sold myself to being accepted, and hey, it worked out. I was now in a family. But for 2 years, my parents would pray for me. We would go to church, and I said, no, I'm a good person. I don't need to receive grace from Jesus and his mercy. That's not for me because I did all the work. Look at me. I got adopted. Well, that heart of stone melted 2 years later, and God broke through. And God said, Vanya, you're not capable of living this life on your own. You're not capable of finding the fullest joy, the fullest peace, and your ultimate purpose on your own. And I knew it. Deep inside, I had that void. I knew that I needed something. And even as much as I love my family and I was happy to be adopted, that void was still not filled. So on our way to Awana one night, which is a youth group for kids, grade school to middle school, and I told my dad and my older brother Tyler, who were in the car at the time, I said, you guys don't have a perfect life, but you have something that I need to have. And they said, Vanya, it's what we've been telling you all along. It's this relationship with Jesus Christ. And I said, well, what do I have to do? And they said, hey, all the work's been done on the cross for you. You just have to say, hey, I'm ready for you, Jesus Christ, to enter my life, for you to be the king of my life. And Vanya would no longer be the king on the throne of his life. So when I was 12, I made that decision. And looking back on all of those hard things over the time of my life, no, it wasn't easy to lose my biological mom when I was 3, and to go back to Russia when I was 17, 7 years after being adopted, and to have my biological father die 6 months before I came back to visit. Those were some hard things. Did I wish for my dad's submarine to be hidden, for his very good life as a naval officer to be totally transformed? By no means. But here's where Philippians 2:13 comes in, which is my life verse. For it is God who works in you to will and to act according to his good purpose. That good purpose is to fill that void inside of us, is to give us that hope and that security and that sense of purpose that God has prepared for us way in advance. So that is my encouragement to you today. That is my story. My name is Vanya, and I testify.